Hello and welcome to the Mets in the UK podcast. Joining me today is the lovely Toria. Hey, Toria.
Hello, hello. Good evening.
Evening. How are you?
I'm all righty, thanks. Mets
Good,
time. How are
good.
you?
Mets time is the best time. Yeah. So we are concluding our 2024 guest list, if you want to call it that. And we are joined today by the fabulous Keith Raad, who is one part of the Mets radio broadcast team. Hey, Keith, how's things?
Good, ladies. Good to talk to you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Yes, we really appreciate it. For those that haven't seen our other podcasts, we have been joined by the likes of Wayne Randazzo, Colin Cassell, Mike Ginler, and many more. You can catch that on our YouTube playlist, on podcast hosts all over the place. Just search for us, Mets in the UK. We're on all the socials, and you can find us and get involved with the hashtag MITUK. So if you're all right, Keith, we're going to go straight into the questions.
Fire away.
Oh, don't give me offers like that. So, take us back to the beginning. How did you get into broadcasting, onto the Cyclones and the Mets? And just give us your backstory.
Yeah, so I guess the very beginning of it is I always loved sports. I always played baseball as a kid. My dad was a coach. So that was the beginning of the love and the knowledge of the game. And once I got into college, I was pretty good at writing. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I joined the radio station in college. And they put me on the sports committee. I didn't even pick it. They just picked it for me. And then part of the deal was board operator, producer, and I would sit back at the studio while the older kids in college would go out and do the play-by-play and the color commentary. And then it was my turn. And I remember I did a soccer game, or as you would probably call appropriately, football in college. And I did color commentary, and I was so awful that after the game, my parents on the phone said, maybe you should try something else. So from there, I knew that, you know what, I grew up listening to big, good voices in broadcasting in New York. So I thought, this is something I actually like. I'm interested in. Let me get good at it. And so for the next 10 years, I was in the minor leagues for baseball. I worked with teams like the Cincinnati Reds or Texas Rangers, their minor league baseball teams. And then eventually I got with the Brooklyn Cyclones, which is a Mets affiliate. And obviously I grew up in New York, so I knew everything about, the Cyclones and, of course, their time with the Mets. And as you mentioned, you had Wayne on the show. Wayne had the position that I currently have now. So if it wasn't for Wayne going to the Los Angeles Angels, I probably would still be in Brooklyn calling Cyclones games. But that's the long and short of it.
And what is it you do to keep yourself busy during the off season?
Yeah, that's a good chance for me to do some other things like football, basketball. I did some NBA G League, which is another minor league affiliate, a couple days ago. And then SNY, which is the Mets TV channel. Every night they have baseball night in New York. They have rotating panelists, so I get to put on some makeup 30 minutes a week and smile and giggle and laugh and come up with hypotheticals. But it's all in good fun. And then hanging out with I have a 15-month-old daughter and a wife who, when I go to San Diego or Arizona or anywhere with the Mets, those two are home waiting for dad to get back. So I like to be a dad in the off season as much as I can be.
Yeah, family first.
Absolutely. So the Mets have a long history of broadcasting excellence, both TV and radio. I mean, how does it feel for you to be part of that history? It's so embedded in New York sport, and you said you've grown up around it, so there must be the awareness of that.
Yeah, so it was a little intimidating, no doubt, to walk into a booth with Howie Rose, who I'm sure you two have heard once or twice or a million times in your life. And then, getting to know guys like Gary Cohen, Ron Darling, Keith Hernandez. It is funny that I have a long way to go. Most people go, hey, we have Keith from the Mets. And they go, Hernandez? And no, it's Keith from the Mets. But it's nice to know that maybe one day down the line that people will, know me as well as they know Keith Hernandez, but maybe never. But yeah, even going back to, Bob, Lindsay, and Ralph, the original voices of the Mets, they did it for so long in the biggest city in the world. And so they built that trust. They were the authoritative voice. And in those big days, they were just the voices of summer. And more importantly, too, for me as a student of broadcasting, I can listen to these guys and go, how do they do this and that, and actually learn how they're doing it, and as opposed to just they were good, they were fun. They're really really good, and so I think for me, it's intimidating, but also it's a challenge. You're in the minor leagues for a long time, and eventually you want that push to have more people listening and people that once you're done with a game say, well, a lot of people heard you. You didn't do that quite well. Maybe you should try doing it this way. And I like working on things like that at the highest level. So my hope is that when people listen and hear me, I'm not too distant from some of the great voices that we've had in the Mets. Not saying that I'm a great voice, but I'm not a bad voice, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I mean, we affectionately refer to you as young Keith.
I'll take that for as long as I can get it, truly.
Yeah, there's Keith and young Keith, so that we know which Keith we're talking about. I mean, but from a personal point of view, anyone who watches and listens to our podcast or sees anything to do with my social media knows that I have like a serious love affair with the radio booth, and particularly my adoration for Howie from how I got into baseball and how I got into the Mets. And it was initially through listening to it, and it was Howie that kind of fostered that in me and taught me the game ultimately. So you can imagine over here, when it's 10 past midnight, your eyes don't necessarily want to be working, right? So a lot of the time I'll have the visual of the game on, but I will be listening to you guys from audio because it's naturally that little bit more descriptive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people, we're talking for those of us in the UK and beyond, and outside of the US. I know that radio is still a great thing in the US, and you see people from all over the country that are able to access it and talk about listening to the radio broadcasts. But here we listen to the audio way more, just because stupid clock. And so it's, it really, really makes a difference. And it is that voice of summer, like you said, it's something that we're very fortunate to have, and we love our TV booth as well. I look forward to the odd early game where my brain can engage and I can watch and listen at the same time. So we love our TV booth, but having that audio description, it's quite, it's a big deal to think that you're ultimately responsible for how so many people are hearing and understanding what's going on the field.
Yeah, that's the best part about radio for me, is that I think baseball specifically on the radio is so much different than football or basketball, which are more, football in America is 17 games a year, so you're probably not going to miss a game. Baseball, as you two know, is 162 games. It's every single day, and so you can't live and die with watching every single pitch. You're driving to dinner, or you're going somewhere, you're going for a walk, or you're doing the dishes. And on radio, we can create that reality in your mind. That's the most fun part for us, is the word that I pick is the word that you now have to envision in your brain, like crushes a ball to left field. Now you're thinking, wow, something amazing is going to happen. What's going to happen? Tell me more. I love that ability to do that. And so on SNY, on TV, they have great directors and producers that are creating these images and zoom ins and graphics. And Howie and I and Pat McCarthy, we have to do that with our voices. So, and the words that we pick. So it's really fun to be able to do that, because I know that that's, in a way, the word that I think of is very intimate. When I was listening to the radio, is that I felt like the person I was listening to, I knew them. I knew what they were about. I knew what made them laugh. I knew when they were getting serious. So I think that's what always drew me to want to do this, was to create that for other listeners. So I'm right with you, Tori. I'm a radio lover myself. As much as people are saying, "Oh, one day you'll do TV," it's maybe, but I love radio right now.
Oh, I love that. And you mentioned working with Howie. I mean, how is that?
It's amazing. It's a million things. It's hilarious. The man is funny as it gets. The things he says on the air are great. The things he says off the air, I hate to say it, are a little bit better because he can say it off the air. He just has so many stories, and his recall, his ability to just remember things from 1972 on a Tuesday in July. Oh, that was the 13th of July. Here's who was playing. It's just like craziness that he can remember all those things. But what he's taught me is to, coming from the minor leagues, you do the broadcast a certain way. You're talking to a certain audience. But when you get to the major leagues, there's so many more things that you have to realize that you're responsible for to create a reality for Tracey and Toria in the UK who want to know, who is this player? Why is this player important to what the Mets are trying to do? So there's so many things that even from my first year to the second year, I got so much better at. Maybe listeners realize it, maybe not. Emphasize certain things, but he's just such a great person to learn from. And when you're paired up with a legend, a guy who's in the Hall of Fame, who's been on this planet twice as long as you have, you're a little bit tentative to think maybe this guy doesn't really want to work with somebody who's so young, but it is the complete opposite. He is very welcoming. He wants to pass it down to myself and to Pat so that, one day we'll be as close as we can to be as good as he is. But he's every bit the legend that the title proclaims.
Oh, the bouncing between the two of you, especially with the age, it works so brilliantly.
I appreciate that. He told me, and his daughter Alyssa, by the way, told me that too. I'm sure if Alyssa is listening, she'll know that it's the same thing. She goes, make fun of his age, he'll love it. And I said, all right, great, that's it, sold. There was one moment. There's so many of them, but one moment stuck out to me. He said to me on the air, he goes, "You ever get woken up by a text?" I said, "No, Howie, I'm not 70. I don't get woken up by a text message. I mean, my phone's on vibrate. I fall asleep. And people who are older than 65 probably have their ringer on all the time. You know how that goes. But there's so many great memories that we have. If it's a good game, if it's a bad game, if it's a blowout, we're just having fun."
Sounds good. So you've mentioned about Wayne and taking over the role from Wayne. Did he give you any tips? Did you have any contact with him as part of the process when you were hiring?
Yeah, definitely. Wayne was excellent. Just a great up and coming broadcaster. I say that, and it sounds like a slight because Wayne's the voice of the Los Angeles Angels and does Apple TV. He has the career most people dream of having. But I say up and coming because he just continues to move his way up. He's very kind about what working with Howie is like. Make sure to do certain things. Little tidbits that I still hold to this day. For instance, if you have something, usually you have dinner before the game, it's 6:00, you're having something to eat. With Howie, he said, if you have something funny on the air and you really want to get him to laugh, don't waste it at dinner and wait, save it for on the air. So just little things like that, because you want that genuine laugh. A lot of times, you're with somebody all the time, like Pat and I do a lot of games together as well. You can only talk to somebody so much without telling them everything right? I mean, you spend every waking second with these people, but it's nice to hold back something until on the air you get that genuine reaction. So just things like that are great from Wayne, who's spent a long time as the number 2 and said things like, take care of Howie, he's a legend. All good things.
I mean, that's, I think, again, it comes back to that continuation and that kind of the legacy of the talent that we've had go through the Mets TV and radio. And speaking of continuation, I mean, one of the things that we've enjoyed about your time in the booth is how you've been able to recall some of the anecdotes from your time with the Cyclones. I mean, how's it been for you seeing some of the players that you watched back then come through to the big leagues? I mean, do you feel like having that history with them enhances your enjoyment or your performance? Or
what's great about the minor leagues is like, I mean, if you guys are rock and roll fans, it's like seeing your favorite band playing in a basement in front of 10 people, and then you love them, you go see them every night, you tell people about them, nobody cares, and then they come out with a big hit, everybody knows about them, and you're going, wait a minute, this is my band. I love them when no one else knew about them or cared about them. So that's how I feel about guys like Brett Beatty and Francisco Alvarez, and Ronnie Mauricio was hurt all year, but he's extremely talented. We'll see a lot more from him. But it was nice my first year, and we were down in spring training getting ready for the season, and we had to do what's called photo day or media day, where the players go around to get headshots for ESPN or SNY, and then they come over to the radio booth and they'll do what's called a liner, which is, hey, this is Keith Raad. You're listening to Mets baseball on WCBS 880. And Brett Beatty came over to me and gave me a hug and congratulations. And because we spent a whole summer riding the bus together in the minor leagues, and so it's just nice to see them up there, to appreciate how hard it is to get up there as a player, let alone a broadcaster. And then the other thing too is, like, Francisco Alvarez is really, really, really good. This year he was okay, but I know what he's capable of, and everybody sees that on a consistent basis. It's just nice to see 30,000 people come to their feet when he hits a home run instead of, in the minor leagues, 3,000 people. So that's really great.
Yeah, that's I think it must have played a part, and it was, it has been noticeable, and I think it's been a real bonus that you've come through that and have that relationship with them. And again, the progression, before we get into thoughts on 2024 as a whole, I want to skip to the end a little bit and talk a little bit about you getting to call postseason baseball for the first time. I mean, you handled it brilliantly and didn't skip a beat. How was that for you? And did your prep have to change at all? How did you approach it?
Yeah, it was definitely unique the first time doing it. I mean, driving to the park in Milwaukee for the wild card series, I was a little nervous, had some butterflies, because you realize that, hey, this is the only game going on in baseball right now, the one that you're doing. And there's a lot of Mets fans. There's Mets fans who are diehards like you two. There are Mets fans that don't show up until it's the playoffs. So the audience gets bigger, the listening audience gets bigger, and there's more eyes and ears, I guess you'd say, on the radio or TV. So don't mess up, basically, is the point of that. And so that's pressure. I mean, that's saying I'm trying to do a good job for everybody. So yeah, there was a little bit of nerves, but I would say probably by the fifth inning, I realized that, okay, this is just another game. It's a very big game, but it's just another game. But you do add more emphasis to each pitch every once in a while, because this fifth inning is not a fifth inning in July or April. This is the fifth inning of Game 1 of the National League Wild Card Series. This is a big deal, and it turns out to be. I mean, you have to be ready, and a great example of that, it turns out Howie Rose got basically every amazing call all postseason, right? He got every single one. So happy for him. But I got to learn and listen. But when Pete Alonso steps up in Milwaukee in Game 3, and the way that Howie set the scene, these are the things I'm learning from him.
Yeah,
he was ready, and you have to be ready. And that's what Howie taught me, is just be ready. Anytime, any chance that the Mets could score, they give up a run, like, this is a huge pivotal moment that we'll always not only remember, but if the Mets win, we'll break it down for a lifetime. If the Mets lose, we'll break down why they lost in this moment for a lifetime. So again, no pressure, things that we'll never forget forever. But yeah, it was amazing. And at that point, I think from the nerves came I just always had to every once in a while remind myself to smile. This is a baseball game. We're having fun. Be excited for the person on the field making the thing happen, instead of don't mess up, wait a minute, this is Mark Vientos going to hit a big home run in Philadelphia. I got to call home run to right field at Citizens Bank Park, which was awesome. And I hope the joy came out, or the Jesse Winker home run that he hit in the second deck. The joy came out. The big moment came out. It was just more enjoy it instead of, try not to mess it up.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you felt like you messed anything up, you covered it well, because it was, it was. We said in the group, at the time, if you didn't know, you wouldn't have known it was your first time going through postseason. And I think that's, it's really cool the way that you were able to kind of work through that, because it was just, again, really. I mean, I think I was traveling for quite a bit of postseason, so I was listening a lot, and it was bob on. I didn't miss a beat, and neither did you guys. So
Thank you.
appreciate
I'm sure, Tori, you're setting this up beautifully. You're saying all the nice things, and at the end of this interview, you'll go to, okay, here's all the things that I caught that you screwed
we,
up.
Yeah, constructive
we wouldn't do
criticism.
that.
We're great at it. We're great at it. You know, we're Brits. We say it as it is. It's fine.
Good.
In 2024, it was utterly mental. You had everything from OMG to Grimace to Toria in the booth with crumpets and real chocolate. So, what was your personal highlight for the year?
Whew. I mean, there was so many. It's hard not to think about that game 161 in Atlanta, where Lindor hits the home run after the Mets had the lead, lost the lead with Edwin Diaz, and then Lindor hit the home run. There was a feeling. The feeling that I remember is kind of a multitude of moments. Was I feel like every Met fan at a certain point thought, how are the Mets going to win this game? We know they're going to come through. We know they're going to win. How is it going to happen? And the Lindor home run, sticks out, the home run in Atlanta. But the one that we saw later on in the playoffs was the grand slam that he hit. When he came up with the bases loaded, I thought he's going to get it done. It's already set in stone in my mind. Ground ball to the left side, double down the line. He's going to get it done. And then he hit a grand slam to kind of put the cherry on top. But that feeling is very rare in baseball because it's a game of failure. You're going to fail first, and then every once in a while you'll succeed. At that point in the year, the Mets were just succeeding. And I can give you the flip side of that is every single game in May, we were coming to the ballpark, and the three of us or four of us would look at each other and would go, how are they going to lose today? Because it was unbelievable the way they were losing. And that's why it was so sweet at the end of the year. All of Francisco Lindor's moments, all of Mark Vientos' insane moments, coming through late. It was just like you had that optimism that they're going to do something here every single night.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, like you say, it was almost foretold that Lindor was going to do that in the moment. And it was just a real fitting moment as a Mets fan, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm commonly known to be the optimistic one.
I feel like is that hard to believe? Do I believe that or?
Yeah, I am. Sometimes a little too much, perhaps, but I am very much to the last out, very optimistic. So I had faith always that Lindor was going to do something, but when it happens, those moments, and we did in the postseason particularly, we just had so many. We just know this team would not give up, and it was beautiful. It was painful how it ended, because it felt like we deserved more from how they battled. But there was just always that, for me at least, that feeling that magic was still there.
It was bittersweet at the end. I mean, they were part of us, that once you got to the Dodgers series, thought this is different. I mean, the Dodgers were really bleeping good. I mean, the way they controlled the strike, they didn't swing at anything, and you just played the Phillies who swung at everything, and then you play the Dodgers who swung at nothing. And if you don't throw them a strike, they walk. Okay, throw them a strike, they hit it out. Tommy Edman of all people is hitting home runs. So it's just,
what did New York do against him?
I don't know. It's just one of those names that will sadly live on forever. But you definitely had that. I had that feeling going into the last game in LA. Shouldn't they? Exactly what you said, Tori. Don't they deserve more? Isn't there? There's a push, right? There's, Mark Vientos hits the home run. You're thinking, okay, here it comes. Here they come back. But the Dodgers, you have to hand it to them. What they have done. I know people are upset that the Mets lost to the Dodgers, but you look at the Dodgers and think, man, that whatever they're doing, you'd love to replicate it.
Yeah, they are definitely gold standard.
Absolutely.
Gold standard. We touched on 2024 highlights, and I'm going to kind of go slightly away from the baseball a moment. As I assume highlight for 2024, you were honored in your hometown this year, right? How did that come about, and how did that feel?
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, my hometown, I'm from Long Island, New York, as we proudly say, the South Shore. I'm from Valley Stream. Very proud to be from V-Town, as we talk about it too. Yeah, I think it was my grandfather was always very involved in the community and local church. We're Catholic, so there was always people who knew people who knew people who knew people. And my grandfather had 7 kids, and my mom was one of 7, and so I used to be, oh, you're Patty's son or you're Joe's grandson. So there's always, I walked into responsibility, in my, helping little ladies cross the street and all that sort of stuff. But
Oh,
just I've always loved my hometown, and I knew a lot of people. So I think the mayor, Ed Fair, went to school with his kids, just grew up with them, worked at the local pool. So it was just enough people had known of me that, hey, that the guy doing the Met games is Valley Stream, and Ed Fair is a huge Mets fan, and the mayor said, let's do something. So they put a day together, got a lot of people to come around. They gave me the key to the village, which they've never given the key to anything before. I don't know why they gave it to me. Maybe they thought Keith Hernandez was coming, but they gave it to me. It was very special. It was very kind, and I know Howie had a lot of fun with it. Chris Majkowski was there. Ray Martell, our producer, was there. Mr. Met was there, so my daughter was very happy. But it was a very nice night to be honored. Which is, I try to be humble. I try not to look for being honored, but it was very nice to be honored that night.
No, sounds very sweet.
It did have a lot of fun.
So, the biggest deal that we've had so far in the postseason, I say so far because we're hoping for more, is the Soto deal, of course. Are you excited to be calling him when it comes to next year, and any general thoughts about next year?
Well, the first thing I thought of was, holy, you know what? That's a lot of money. Great, we have the owner that can pay that. The other thing I thought of was, okay, I'm 31, so I'll be calling Juan Soto till I'm 46. That's a little scary, but in a good way. I mean, I'm so excited because it's very rare that somebody who's 26 years old, everybody in baseball, including David Stearns, can say he's probably going to the Hall of Fame, and he's just about to hit the peak of his career.
Yeah.
And now he's a Met. So it's amazing from the, oh my God, they got this guy to play for the Mets. But being from New York and New York City, the Yankees don't get outbid by anybody for anything. So that makes it even sweeter, because to me, it's the beginning of a new era. I mean, it's the beginning of the Yankees they'll always get the last laugh. But now Steve Cohen and the Mets get the last laugh. And I think it's the beginning of getting the last laugh. So Juan Soto means more to the Met organization and the Met fan than just 2 for 4 with a home run and 3 RBIs. He is the beginning of a new age of being a Mets fan.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's I think the Yankees side of it is what makes it even sweeter. Getting a player like that is incredible. Getting him ahead of him taking the option with the Yankees is just, it's fabulous. So we mentioned previously we have our 3 very quick fire Mets related questions, based more around your fandom. And it's just first thing that comes to your head. No need to overthink it. So to kick us off, your favorite Mets players, past and present, please.
So I loved Edgardo Alfonso. Was one of my guys. He was my manager in Brooklyn, and I got to know him so well for so many years. Such a sweet man, terrific hitter. I mean, Fonzie was one of the best hitters. I think I remember where I was when I saw Jose Reyes. I think his first game, he hit 2 triples, and I literally said to my grandfather, "Who is this guy?" And turns out nobody knew who he was yet. He was his first game. And then David Wright was the captain. I mean, that's probably the era that I remember most. I mean, now that I'm this is quick fire. I'm giving you nothing but talking for 20 seconds here. You see Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling, and these guys are amazing. But I grew up in the 90s, so I missed their whole career. I can appreciate them from what they did for the Mets, but I really, Fonzie and Robin Ventura and Mike Piazza and, Jay Payton, all those guys from the late 90s, early 2000s were my guys. Was that fast enough? I don't think that was fast enough.
No, you gave your honest answer, and that's enough.
The explanation is fine. It's just the point is to not think too much about.
Okay, zero thinking.
So next question. Your favorite Mets moment of all time? You don't necessarily have to have been there, but when you think about big Mets moments, what's your favorite?
Yeah, I think just from learning the history is immediately winning the World Series in 1969, because they were so awfully, terribly, horribly bad. They had no money. They had no good players. They had nothing. They were terrible. You couldn't, in those days in the 60s, go out and sign Juan Soto or Sean Manaea. You had to literally build it from scratch. And to build it from 1962 to 1969 from scratch and get Tom Seaver, like if you look at what the Mets were in 62, 63, 64, like I said, they were absolutely awful. And then Tom Seaver comes in and he is not only good, he's like the greatest player ever in that generation, just about to get started. And he, along with some help by that point, helps the Mets win it all. I think that's why they're called the Miracle Mets, because truly they went from to World Series champions.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing that kind of keeps me sane about the White Sox taking the losing record this year, because I'm we're British, we like the underdogs and we don't mind losing, so we're fine. So for me, like that record was quite sacred, and I was a little bit I didn't quite want it to go, but I think part of what makes that record so significant for us is where we were 7 years later. So as long as the White Sox aren't doing that 7 years later,
we're fine with it.
But that's the difference, is the White Sox could technically this year win it all by signing Juan Soto and everybody in free agency, and it wouldn't be even close to what the Mets did. But yeah, that's why that story has to be passed down and passed down and passed down, because that is the true history of the Mets franchise. And that's why I think, the ball going through Buckner's legs was a miracle, right, to win in 86. But, I mean, the Mets were a really good team that year. Not 1962 to 1969 is a whole another ball of wax.
Absolutely. And for those guys, so one of the things, Keith, that we've found, particularly since the London series this year, is we've gained a number of Mets fans, which is kind of the point, right? They're getting to come and see our Mets and seeing how gutsy they were in that in that weekend, and love it.
Yeah.
So they might not necessarily understand yet or have had time to look at the history of the Mets, but if you're listening to this and you're wondering what we're talking about with 62 to 69, find some time during the off season, go look it up. Look at your Mets history, because it will only make you more proud of this team. Yeah,
New York, growing up in New York, you learn about the Mecca of the city, and I know there's always that New York bias. It's New York or nowhere kind of thing. But really, baseball, you had the Yankees, the Giants, and the Dodgers. And when Giants and the Dodgers went to California and it was just the Yankees, you had all those Dodgers and Giants fans who said, I'm never going to root for the Yankees. And so they needed somebody. And here come the Mets. And it was like all those people. I mean, I remember hearing when the Dodgers left, grown men cried in the streets. Like they didn't know where to go with all this love and passion. And the Mets come along and it was like anybody but the Yankees. We love this team. This will be our team. Yankees were this white collar, up in their perch. And the Mets are blue collar. They're just like us, working class. And so people lopped on. The Mets, even in those terrible years, sometimes they had more people in the stands than the Yankees did, which is incredible to me that happened.
I think they had a ticker tape parade, right, for losing.
Yeah, I mean they were historically terrible, Toria. Some things we don't always want to remember, but yeah, that is, it's important to really just appreciate the story of why 2024 was so great. it's like in Mets history, this doesn't happen very often, right? You don't get to the NLCS every single year. So that's why it's really cool to appreciate 2024 by just, going back. You don't have to memorize. I don't memorize the 64 Mets. Howie does. I don't because Howie lived it. But yeah, you know that you appreciate what the Mets do now more and more every year.
Amazing. The history of the Mets is something that I am quite passionate about. I love it. But I have a life, I promise. Finally, speaking of people with lives, if you had Steve Cohen's checkbook right now, and you could sign anyone, they don't have to be a free agent, but anyone to any position for the Mets, who's it going to be and why?
Steve Cohen's check. And this is going to be anybody, someone already with the team?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they're under contract, anything.
Oh, boy. I mean, it's probably the cheapest low-hanging fruit to say Shohei Ohtani, but I think he's phenomenal. I cannot wait to see him pitch this year and see what that looks like. I know that it's probably a very boring answer, but I was not in the camp of this is the greatest baseball player of all time until probably 2 years ago, this last year with the Angels. And I could see when, Ohtani and the Angels came to Citi Field and that it was an August series. And the Angels don't come to National League parks very often, and they did. And when the whole stadium got up to record his at bat, I thought this is different than a good player coming here. Like, this is people who don't love baseball that much or just a little bit interested. They want to know what's going on. And it turns out that he's probably the greatest baseball player of all time. I mean, it's hard. Like, so Juan Soto got more money than Ohtani, but he can do one of the two things that Ohtani can do. I mean, it really is amazing what Shohei Ohtani has turned into, and I would probably sign him for more. I wonder if Soto signed for $765 million and Ohtani was a free agent, would he get $1 billion if that was flipped? I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe Soto only got 765 because Ohtani was 700.
There you go. See that? That's good. That's a good point.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, they kind of kicked the crazy money market off with their magic accounting, but
yeah,
gotta love it. But yeah, I mean, the Ohtani. I think the Ohtani kind of circus is worth every penny. Sorry, hi Rose. She's got to make an appearance every so often.
Of course.
Everything that comes with Ohtani, you're not just signing the player, you're signing the name and the image and Japan.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Everything that comes with him. And we can just hope that for the good of the game that he can come back pitching next year and be as strong as he previously was. I mean, there was talk of him potentially pitching towards, in the postseason last year. I think perhaps that they found themselves in a bit of a rut, maybe. But I'm glad that hopefully, again, as a fan of baseball, I can't ever bring myself to want the Dodgers to do well since they hightailed out of New York. But I can't do it. I hope for the game that he's back and fit and firing on all cylinders next.
What I want on my turn to ask a question. What I want to know from you two is how I know that you are Mets fans and you listen and watch. But how hard is it to stay fans when you're not on the same time zone as your favorite team and you go to work and did you see the Met game last night? And people go, "What are the Mets?" How hard is it? How hard is it for you two to stay fans?
Trace, I'll let you go for it.
It's easier with my group of guys and girls from Mets in the UK, and the expanding Mets community on social media makes it a hell of a lot easier. I've been a Mets fan since 2005, so pre-social media, it was hell then. The only person I could talk about it was with my husband, and I don't talk to him about it anymore. I've talked to my friends about it instead.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think the biggest thing is that it's unsociable hours. I mean, the number of times I used to go to bed listening to the radio. Like, sorry, darling, I'm going to sleep. I'm just listening to the game. It's fine. Don't mind me. But it's great. The number of people that we're finding that are more open to it now. And, whenever we meet people, I'm like, I have City Field as my screensaver on my phone. So people will see that. Yeah. Like, what's that about? I'm like, yeah, it's baseball. I love my baseball. I'm going to New York in a couple of weeks. What's all that about? And people are open to that conversation now. Whereas, maybe when I first started watching them 15 years ago or whatever, it would be like zero interest. You wouldn't get even, it would be, hay bales rolling. But now, because we also, so the other thing that we have is one of the subscription channels here, but here all the same, shows games pretty much every night during the season. So you don't know what game's going to be on. You can find out like a few days in advance, but it's generally, obviously we'll always have the ESPN game or the Fox game or whatever. But that helps. And there's a weekly highlight show on there. The BBC here has recently started showing a few games. And they do have a section on their sport website. So it's getting there. We've just had news that GB Baseball is getting more funding ready for the Olympics in LA. So hopefully that will do more. We're doing loads to bring children through. So the past couple of years with the London series, I've gone ahead of the London series and done volunteering with school children. So it's a program that runs throughout the year that gives the school children equipment and tools to play the game. But around the London series, to kind of pull on that, we kind of get them all together and go and do some games and make it fun for them and get some alumni in and have fun with that. So, they got to hang out with, Daniel Murphy and Mickey Wilson. So we're doing our bit to grow it here. And that's ultimately why we exist as a group. We're here to try and share the love of the game and the Mets specifically here, and then to represent the UK fans when we're fortunate enough to go over there. It's hard. It's 40 hours. Not everyone gets it, but we will continue to keep telling everyone all about it and in the hope that eventually they'll love it as much as we do.
That's amazing. Really amazing. It's hard. It's very, very challenging. And I know that when we were there in for the London series, the pubs are closing at 10 o'clock. And so you can't stay out to watch the Mets at the pub.
On a Sunday.
Yeah.
There are a few pubs around that will show the games. There are a couple of specialist pubs knocking around the country, but not nearly enough. But yeah, I mean, it's only on a Sunday that they close that early. On a Saturday they're open.
Okay, then maybe I was just going to the wrong ones when we were.
You should have been with us. I mean, that's what you should have been doing.
Probably next time.
You should have. We were out anyway. Let's not relive them.
Well, some of us had to go to work the next day.
It's okay. Yeah,
actually we didn't.
Yeah, indeed. Less said about that, but yeah, it is difficult, and unless you pay for MLB TV, or you're content to just watch whatever team is on, BT. Well, it's not BT anymore, is it? TNT.
No. It is. Yeah, TNT.
It's kind of luck of the draw as to what's on there.
Right.
But that will get people into it. We're trying. We're getting there.
Yeah.
I love it. And I know here, not that you needed football to be any bigger, but soccer, football, there's so many more fans here, friends of mine. Oh, yeah, I'm watching Liverpool now. I'm an AC fan. Like, maybe we could trade. Maybe we could take a little football from you and you guys can have a little baseball.
Yeah, take it.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, we'll have that trade all day. Love it.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time this evening, Keith. We really appreciate it. We are, as Tracey mentioned in the intro, this is wrapping up our 2024 guest series. We've had a number of really great guests. Couldn't think of a better way to wrap it up. So thank you very much for putting the cracker on the tree for us to finish our year. We will be doing more in the new year, Off you go, Rose. We'll be doing more in the new year, but we are going to take a bit of a break over Christmas. Any final thoughts from either of you guys?
Keith, anything?
Just so happy to talk to you guys. I mean, when we were there in London, it was just so nice to be in a new country. I could tell that when, the Mets were playing, people that were at the stadium, probably 95% of them had no idea what was going on. So I know that you two are doing great work to build the game, but it's really, I know for the radio crew with Howie, myself, Madge, Pat, we really appreciate all the listeners. We know that a lot of people do listen from the UK to us because maybe it's a little bit easier than getting a TV package and the hours are tough. So we appreciate it. It means so much that we can put faces to some ears that are listening. So Toria, Tracey, Rose, it was great to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much for your time, Keith. And let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.